Hello. So, over the past few days, you've probably seen a lot of gaming YouTubers talk about a game called The Day Before. Personally, I didn't make any videos on this. I sat back and watched from the sidelines and just saw it all unfold. Today, it has come to an end. Fantastic, the studio behind The Day Before, said that they are announcing the closure of Fantastic Studio. Unfortunately, The Day Before has failed financially, and they lack the funds to continue. All income received is being used to pay off the debts to their partners. To basically give a quick rundown of this, The Day Before did 200,000 Steam units on day one, and then almost immediately 92,000 of those Steam units were returned and refunded. The remaining money that was generated is being used to pay off an annual contract of $1 million to Nitrado, who run their servers, and their publisher, Mytona, also probably took a percentage of the sales. Therefore, Fantastic as a studio is left with nothing, and the financials of this game is actually worse than their previous title called Prop Night, which was basically Prop Hunt. Therefore, in total means that there is the equivalent of 0 units sold. Now, a lot of people don't really seem to understand kind of what's happened here, because obviously this game came across as a scam. Loads of people thought they were going to scam people, the trailers were fake, etc, which they were. But in today's age, especially with digital games, you can't scam, because Steam lets you refund. So I don't think the intention for the studio was to actually scam anyone. I think this was a complete Hail Mary to try and make at least some money to pay back their partners which they owed money to. You see, when you get into bed with an investor or a publisher, they often set a deadline for you to complete the project by, or else you have to take less equity in your business, or the deal has to be rearranged, or they pull out. So likely the publisher wanted the release, but the studio couldn't deliver, so they just released a broken game, which actually happens quite a lot today, a lot more often than you would think. The Day Before is just the worst example, and they got hit very hard. What they produced could have probably been created within 1 year by any studio, and they claimed it took them 5 years of blood, sweat, and tears. Now, this just simply cannot be true and is an outright lie, because almost every single asset present in the game is something that they purchased through the Unreal Marketplace, or other sources such as CG Trader, Turbo Squid, etc. Now, there's nothing wrong with buying assets. Lots of indie studios do it. In fact, almost every indie studio will buy some kind of asset, whether it's a custom shader, a networking capability, models, textures, materials, whatever. I run an indie studio myself. We're making a third-person shooter called Cross Planet, which, small plug, does have a playtest coming up this weekend, December 16th and 17th, if you want to try it. But what I'm going to point out here is we also use assets. We buy assets from the Unity asset store. The difference is we don't shy away from this. We tell people if we buy assets. We tell any publishers we talk to. Anyone we do business with knows that some of the game uses assets, and it's completely fine to do so if you disclose it. Assets are used across many, many games. Even some of the biggest titles that you play today will have purchased assets in them. You just don't know it. Sometimes they can be as small as a shader, which makes things look a bit more cartoony, or maybe some water effects. Maybe it's a single building, or maybe it's a weapon, etc. Assets are a great way to speed up development and also just quickly get something suitable for your game, for prototyping even, and completely fine to use, except you have to kind of disclose that you use them. In our game, every single UI element, every single sound, every single line of code is all custom made from the ground up. That's the difference. At least 50% or more of the game is custom made, and we just use assets to support development. The Day Before seems like they used almost 95% assets, and then they claimed that they had volunteers working in their team, people they weren't paying, and also now claiming, their financial struggles. Who could have seen that coming if you weren't able to pay people and you were also buying a ton of assets? Overall, here there is a big lesson for game developers, and that is don't force advertise. This game in the studio is a victim of overhyping their game and under-delivering. If you say that you're going to do something, you have to make sure that you deliver. And if you can't deliver, you have to be transparent and you have to explain why you can't deliver, and then you have to move forward. With this, maybe the game goes into early access or a beta before you launch, therefore people don't need to spend money. maybe the game's price is reduced as a result. I'm sure if the day before did any of these things, people would have been a bit more open. There's obviously still going to be haters because the fact that you force advertised in the beginning, but if you were transparent with people and just explained exactly what was going on, some people might have been open to, cutting you some slack. But as I said in the beginning, it's very, very obvious what happened to you. They had no other choice. They had to release the game. They were in debt. They needed to pay people who they were contractually obliged to pay. That's why the game didn't release in early access and why it didn't have a beta, which they also previously claimed they wanted to do. But you don't make any money from that. So it's very obvious what happened. They needed to get money, so they released earlier than they wanted to. They paid off their partners, and now they're sat with nothing. Now, overall, the situation obviously sucks, but I think this is actually long-term going to be a good thing because it proves that this genre is still wanted. It proves that a zombie open-world survival game could still be the #1 game to release, ever. This game was the #1 wishlisted game on Steam, and 200,000 units in a day is absolutely insane. For a game that basically had no advertising other than overhyped trailers, they didn't do any YouTube ads, they didn't do any print advertising such as putting billboards and posters, things on trains and buses, stuff like that. There weren't any advertisements for the game on television, all that stuff. They didn't do any of this. If they did all that, and this was actually a product that was going to deliver on what they promised, they probably could have got 500,000 retail units in one day. So long term, I think this will spark a fire in some developers, maybe bigger studios, to create, ultimately, a game that people have proven and shown that they actually want. Now, as for the studio behind The Day Before, I don't know where they go. They said they're closing their studio, but ultimately they could just go and make a new one, or they could make games as an independent individual. Because I believe the studio, the people in charge of it were just two brothers. So in theory, they could just go and start a new individual studio with just the two of them. But I hate to say it because I want people to succeed and I want people to do well in the game dev industry. But I don't think these guys should be allowed back in. This is the, I think, 5th game, maybe 6th, that they've released and then within 6 months abandoned completely. So they have a track record, a very infamous one, and it doesn't seem like they're going to change anytime soon. They've done this for almost 10 years. If they release another game in 2 years' time and they do the same thing, then they will have done 10 years straight of releasing and abandoning games. So nothing's going to change. These people shouldn't be allowed to release a game. They shouldn't be allowed to work for another studio. They're just incompetent and don't have good intentions. So, yeah, this is the only video I'll do covering this game. Hopefully I gave a couple minutes of extra insight than what your average YouTuber would, with the whole how it works behind the scenes and the fact that they had partners to pay off and, there's expectations from publishers and things. And hopefully I've kind of done assets a bit of justice, because I feel like this game especially puts a really bad taste in people's mouths when they hear the word asset. But a lot of gamers, as I said, just don't know that assets are actually used in a lot of games that you play. You just don't know it. And they're a great resource to game development. So, yeah. All right. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in whatever my next one is. Goodbye. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, my video game CrossPlanet is doing a playtest December 16th and 17th on Steam. We have 358 people currently requesting to play, and I'd like that to get to 500 by the time that I press the big button that lets everybody play. There's 10 different maps, 15 game modes, a couple of characters for you to use. There's like 10 or 11 weapons, can't remember off the top of my head. We've got a Discord so you can communicate with everyone and play. There's 500 plus people in there. And overall, this is just a great way for us to learn, get some feedback, find some bugs. You can suggest ideas, and hopefully it helps us shape the game into something that you guys will enjoy when we release. So yeah, if anyone wants to help out and play our game and give us feedback, then just go to Steam, type in CrossPlanet, and request access to play.